is MedTech Jam Session with Chris and Mike D, where the big bold questions meet the next big thing. Turn it up, pay attention if you're chasing that dream.
All right.
MedTech Jam Session, where the future comes to scream.
Now you're welcome. Chris. Good morning, Chris. We don't usually do this early in the morning. It's both early in the morning and late at night.
Depending on where you are in the world, right?
Well, the MedTech Jam Session is going global.
More and more every day. Listen, I just want to know, when are we putting out that song on vinyl?
That's a good question. Well,
I mean,
go to our studio and right here in Memphis, and
right here in Memphis. I'm
drop
telling
that
you,
tune, baby.
it's where most of the greats recorded up most of their greats.
That's true.
Yeah, and there's, I mean, come on, vinyl's king again.
Yeah. For some reason, people call Nashville Music City, but really Memphis is Music City.
I've never gotten that. I've never.
Yeah. But we won't. We're not going to talk about the rivalry of Memphis versus Nashville today. We are going to talk about sports medicine. And why I'm really curious to hear from our guest today, Sean Cogan from Tessa Medical. Let him tell his story. And I've never really understood why there's been really, I think, a lack of enabling tech in sports. We've seen robotics and navigation in spine and in joints, hips, knees. We're seeing it now in ankles and shoulders.
Yep.
It seems like it's just been nothing in sports.
It's been a slow mover, but yet it is arriving.
I think so too. And it's about time.
Yeah.
So all the way from down under, that was terrible. And I apologize to my Australian friends. Our friends. CEO of Tessa Medical, Sean Cogan. Sean, welcome to the Jam Session.
Thanks, Mike, and I love your little Australian accent there. We'll throw a few shrimps on the barbie for everyone next hour, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be mildly offensive if I tried to say that.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Hey, what'd you think about that lead-in, bro?
I loved it. I've been listening to you guys for a while, so I love
that makes one of us.
I love the hard rock edge.
Yes,
I really do. So yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
But it's not possible without you, Sean.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
we love talking to leaders and who are bringing up the next generation of tech and med tech, and more specifically orthopedics, and even more specifically sports medicine. Sean, it sounds like you've got a long history in sports. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we want to hear about the problems that Tessa Medical is solving and kind of how that is evolving to now. But first, tell us a little bit about Sean.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. So, as you said, I'm based in Sydney, Australia. It's pretty much born and bred here. And for the last 20 years, I've been working in MedTech. Majority of that time has been in distribution and primarily in sports distribution. So, worked for a company called Device Technologies. We represented a number of companies. We represented Arthrex for a long time, then Zimmer Biomet. So had a lot of opportunity to get into theaters with a lot of surgeons, both locally as well as internationally. So got to learn a lot from that side of things. Obviously being a distributor, it's a bit of a different landscape than when you're working direct as well. So got to learn a lot about the business, because from a distribution standpoint, we're also a 360-degree supplier. So we did regulatory supply, all of that sort of stuff. So we weren't just a sales agency operation. So that was majority of my background, and that's sort of what led me to Tessa. One of our smaller principals who supplied a biologic that we were selling introduced me to the CEO of the company and said, look, he's new to it, doesn't know sports all that well, would really appreciate a set of eyes that's been doing it for a while. So as you mentioned, enabling technology is something that's not common in sports medicine. In fact, it's almost non-existent. And that was really what I saw. My part of the world, around about 70% of total knees are now done with navigational robotics. So in Australia, we've been on the tear for a long time now, adopting that sort of technology. And as you said, it's becoming widespread throughout the body and total joints, and we're seeing it starting to emerge in trauma and other areas as well. And
Yep.
when I looked at the ACL specifically, which is where Tessa's initial focus is, everything's very manual. But we had seen the evolution of adjustable loop technologies coming in and surgeons wanting to fine tune their repairs. But obviously, if you're not measuring something, you can't improve it. So that was what I saw, and we signed up the distribution opportunity. And at probably the right time of life, when my third son was born, the CEO of Tessa stepped off, and I sort of saw that as an opportunity just to do something a little bit different and move from give me a box and I'll work out how to sell it to let's build a team and let's work out how to build something here that can, I believe, change how surgeons do this, enable them to be more precise, enable them to use data to make decisions, and really close that gap on what they can't measure at the moment, and take that step towards sports actually having enabling technology and more readily available.
Absolutely.
So you're talking about measuring in ACL reconstruction. Talk more specifically about the problem you're solving and what you're measuring, and how do you know even what good is if it's never been measured before?
And why not? Why hasn't it been measured before? Is it because the world didn't have a Sean yet?
Maybe. I'll start at the beginning with you. So when you look at sports medicine, everything is very much by feel. So very much manual techniques. Having grown up in it, you walk into a procedure and what you think might be presented in front of you is often not what's presented in front of you. So there's a very much an ad lib sort of within a set of guardrails that surgeons generally will work within. So I think that's been a big driver of the way things will work. The surgeons are generally quite creative in how they'll approach things to get the job done, probably similar to trauma surgeons to some extent. So I think while that's worked really well, what we know is, and we've seen this, and we've seen it in large joints with our total joint registry, how you can see that when you're measuring something and you're following outcomes, that you can see improvements and you can fine tune. You can use technology in the right way. We've seen with sports that the areas where surgeons can measure, and not just outcomes, but things like, hey, if we see it in the literature these days, if a graft for an ACL is larger than 8 millimeters in diameter, you've got a better outcome of not having a failure post. So that's really what TESS is about, is giving the surgeons an ability to measure it and measure something. And it's really the last piece when you look at for an ACL, the part that the surgeons aren't measuring. They measure graft diameter, they measure the size of a tunnel, they measure the length of a tunnel, they know the strength of a fixation device, they know all of these aspects of it. But the actual graft tensioning, which is what restores the stability of the joint, they don't know. So that's what we've done a really good job, I think, with our surgeons and with our development is a device that fits within the way that the surgeons like to do their surgery now, and give them an ability to measure something and close that gap of what they don't know today, so that they can really fine tune and improve the outcomes for their patients.
I'm curious to hear more about how you integrate this into the workflow and the process by which you worked with the surgeons to ensure that the workflow is not totally disrupted. Is it a similar workflow, or are you asking surgeons to really change their practice, or does it flow pretty seamlessly into their current standard?
And time too.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And that's probably been one of the things that we've underpinned the work that we've done over the last couple of years to get to where we are today. Stood in enough cases now where I've seen, if you make something a little bit too difficult for a surgeon and you make their day a little bit more complicated or a little bit harder, they're going to default back to what they know. So we've really focused on trying to make this really user-friendly from the outset, that it becomes something that is easy to adopt. But ultimately, one of the guiding principles in my mind was surgeons use different graft types. All surgeons have different fixation device styles that they like for either certain patients or for their standard approach to the procedure. And at the end of the day, they're the fundamental things that they really want to stick to. And so if we could develop something that would not just focus on one of those niche areas like a specific graft type or a specific fixation device style, we would give them something that could become part of their armamentarium rather than just being a solution for a subset of patients, and probably something that maybe goes against what you get told when you're trying to drive a new product to market. Everyone tells you to just pick a small segment, but maybe my ADHD comes in here and I go, no, sorry. But I think ultimately that's one of the things that we focused on, and I think the team have done a really good job. So we don't have any restrictions on the style of fixation device, the type of graft. We've done 41 cases now in Australia with the device. We've used cortical button fixation on the tibia. We've used interference screw fixation on the tibia. We've done procedures outside of the ACL, like the MPFL, LCLs, MCLs, all within the knee at the moment. But ultimately, we've developed something that works consistently the same way, but it's really easy for the surgeons to put on, and it becomes an adjunct to their procedure. Like it genuinely is an enabling element to it. And probably the nice thing about it that we've seen is, since getting in the surgeon's hands, they're all finding new ways to use it. They're starting to spread using it throughout the procedure. And what we've also seen is the team, both the surgeons, the designers, done a really good job of fostering this concept of being hands-free, so that once the device is attached, it's not only tensioning and holding the tension and measuring it, but the surgeons are now hands-free. I've got a bunch of videos and photos where the assistant, who's often pulling on the graft, holding the leg or doing whatever, holding the camera, is standing off to the side and sort of twiddling their thumbs at this sort of juncture. But we've managed to create something that's really quite enabling in a lot of ways, which is really exciting. But probably to answer your question, we've really focused on just making it simple to use so that it's not a deterrent. And we've taken the view that we can enable this to work with all different scenarios so that there's minimal change for the surgeons.
Awesome.
Hi, everybody. Mike Donahue here. As a MedTech leader, you know how important it is to hit the ground running when your new product clears FDA. You need to quickly align and equip your field sales team with training, customer targeting, sales assets, and operational resources that will maximize revenue attraction. Well, at Convey Med, we have the app for that. Convey Connect is the mobile-first launch operating system that ensures your field team is clinically confident, culturally aligned, and operationally efficient from day one. With your customized, white-labeled Convey Connect app, your reps can train on the go, access agentic AI to identify ideal customer targets, query AI agents to provide intelligent answers to clinical and technical questions from your customers, communicate and engage with both company leadership as well as your teammates in the field, and then just so much more. So if you are interested in learning more about Convey Connect, go to our website, conveymed.io, where you can book a demo and we'd be happy to take you through the app. And now back to the show.
MedTech Jam Session.
So what are you thinking from a commercialization plan standpoint in the U.S.? I know that is imminent. And what are you seeing as inbound interest coming from that about when can I have it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we obviously 4th of July holidays coming up. We anticipate we should be able to start doing cases probably not long the other side of that 4th of July holiday. We've got a number of hospitals where we're at end stage with their VAC process. We're a reusable format at the moment. That makes it a little bit easier as well. At the moment, it's about getting momentum. We've got a number of groups who are looking to invest in the company, and they're really looking for this initial US validation. They've been really pleased with what they've seen in Australia, but we're a small little island on the other side of the world. So it's good validation, but they obviously want to see what the major market is looking like. But what's really exciting about it is we're working with some really big surgeons in some really big institutions. We've got surgeons working out of HSS, NYU, Langone, Stanford University, a number of private surgeon-owned facilities as well, primarily San Francisco or that New York sort of tri-state area is where our base of surgeon advisors are based. And that's where we're that's where we're targeting our commercial launch. We've got a number of distributors who are progressing along the conversations around wanting to distribute and have Tessa in their bag. They see that it's going to solve something that there isn't a solution for, or at least a good solution for in their eyes. And they see it as something that can maybe make a vanilla procedure or a vanilla widget look a little bit more interesting and give their surgeons something that can really help them fine tune their surgery. So it's exciting. We're really looking forward to pushing forward. We've got a couple of really good guys who've got a lot of sports history who are going to be driving that. They brought a lot of surgeons to the table and who are really keen to use it. And these are surgeons who are also outside of our advisory, high volume leaders in the space. So we're going to quickly learn where we stand, but I've stood in enough of these cases now. I'm pretty confident that it's all going to go well.
Sean, I'm curious to know if you can share the business model, because this is new, you're going through value analysis. This is going to be I assume some sort of add-on to the case. So how are you positioning that, and how are you guys making money?
Yeah. So at the moment we're not making money, but our goal is to be disposable. We've got some fixation devices. So we've got an ability and a plan that we will offer either standalone disposable tensioning devices or procedural kits that'll have implants with the disposable. So obviously then we can follow the implant carve-out pathway. And for those surgeons who are either married to an implant or a company or their hospital is or whatever it might be, we've got an ability to supply them with the product in a format that they can consume it. So that's really our primary model for it. We've got a really neat design from the standpoint that we've got a universal body for the device, and then we've got these modular attachments that clip on, clip off, and that's what really gives us the fun to be able to move into these different procedural areas, the different joints over time. The surgeons have a lot of interest in using this for elbows, shoulders, ankle procedures as well. So we've got this little format that we can sort of move in and out. It also gives us an ability to have a hybrid reusable disposable model as well, which can work really well for the really cost-conscious surgery centers, but also give us an ability to chop and change between some of the different varieties of features that we've got as well. So in terms of our overarching business model, we're a company of one person, which is me, but I've got great advisors and great development partners who are playing the key roles for us. Chris is engaged with the company and really helping us steer the direction around the commercialization. And obviously our goal is to create something that surgeons and one of the companies want to buy because it can really add value to their platform. But we've also got a couple of venture studios who've done the development work, doing the regulatory work for us. We've got our guys who are going to represent us commercially as well. So that's really our focus.
I got a question as I think about this, because I don't know if it was intentional or not, but you leaned into something that I thought was pretty cool, is that you're getting VAC committee approvals on the reusable version, and they like that better, right? Does that automatically segue you into not having to get an approval when you come with the disposable version? You got them hooked.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just curious. Was that intentional?
You know what? Unintentionally intentional, from the standpoint that one of the things that we are doing with our VACs at the moment is we are working towards a fee for use while we're in the reusable phase. We've got a view that if we can get some money for the reusable on an ongoing basis, it'll obviously reduce the gap on what a disposable could cost for that. But in terms of maybe bypassing the VAC, I think it can definitely help us, Chris. You touched on it before, asking about efficiencies. I've seen it here firsthand. This is a 1 to 2 case learning curve for the surgeons. We come in for an ACL right at the end of the procedure when they're starting to muck around with sutures and all of this sort of stuff. We've got a device that's really quick and easy to load. They pick it up. Once they've loaded it once, it's very similar in some aspects to other devices that they're familiar with using. So very easy for them to cleat on. And then once they dial their tension in, their hands free. We know surgeons, they work to algorithms. We've seen it here in Australia. The surgeons are setting, for hamstring grafts, for example, between 40 to 50 newtons. For BTB grafts, around about 25 to 35 newtons. That's the measurement they're getting on the tool. Ultimately, we know it. They're going to speed it up. And the fact that they're not having to rely on their assistants to do all these other jobs once they're on, we're seeing it. They're getting faster. We're recording tourniquet times, and that'll be a big focus for us once we're in to support that VAC process as well. We believe we're going to save time. And by capturing that sort of data, and the hospital captures that anyway with their tourniquet times, we believe we're going to be able to provide a pretty strong value proposition around savings that we can create through the device, as well as the way that we can help the surgeons to become precise in this aspect.
That's great.
So you must be doing a fair amount of research, clinical research. How's that going? And what are you measuring? And what besides outcomes are you looking at? Different graft types or different approaches, different fixations, and trying to identify? Because now that you're measuring something that hasn't been measured before, we have to figure out what good is.
Yeah. And number one question I've been asked throughout my whole time is, what's the number? And the reality is we don't know the number. What we've seen from our Australian experience is that the surgeons are hitting a number consistently. As I said, we do a lot of hamstring grafts in my part of the world, and the surgeons are hitting between 40 to 50 newtons on the tool. So we're starting to see that they're gravitating that way. Then I'm not necessarily feeding them that either. We give them an ability to completely choose how much tension so they can personalize this. But ultimately, we are starting to see that from that standpoint. From a research standpoint, we got really good academic minds within our surgeon group who are helping us steer on what are the questions that they want to know, what are the questions that they get asked, what are the questions that their peers want to know. And we're very fortunate. We've got a leading global academic, Bill Walsh, who's based here in Sydney. Good friend, known to a lot of you guys, does a lot of the work for a lot of the companies, helping us to steer the ship. So we've done a really nice little experiment that we're working towards publication, where we had 5 orthopedic surgeons essentially do a manual pull where they would hold the graft for 10 seconds. And we asked them to hit their maximum on each 5 times and hold their maximum. What we saw was none of them could hit the same number on their 5 attempts. And in each of their 5 attempts, on average, they were losing around about 13% of their maximum pull within 10 seconds, and they didn't realize. We had them blinded. When we got them to put Tessa on and hit a number, they were all able to pretty much hit the same number on the device. And what we saw was the loss was significantly less with Tessa. It was more just the creep coming out of the graft, the creep coming out of the sutures, the relaxation that was happening. Because you're measuring it, you can also see it. So then you can adjust it back to your number. We would then get them to hit a second number, and they were all able to do that. So the standard deviation was significantly less. There's a slide that I often show when I'm presenting or talking to people, but one of the surgeons took a phone call that lasted for about 2 minutes while Tessa was on, and the line is pretty much flat for the 2 minutes, which is a pretty good indication of what it does. It just takes out this manual element being your hands. Sutures hurt. You often see surgeons wrap the sutures in artery clips or whatever. One surgeon who used it recently would wrap the sutures around 2 reamers and essentially pull on the reamers. And as he said, it obviously takes the pain away, but he's got a fiddle factor there and it's inconsistent. Used it once, said I want to use it consistently, which is really good, really pleasing.
That's great.
And probably overarching, Mike, one of the things we've developed, we're starting analog, but we're going to get digital. Digital gets everyone excited. Outside of just the tension measurement, we also get an angle measurement. So the surgeons will be able to see what the tension is through the range of motion at a more granular level. It's a really exciting bit. And I think it's something that'll really change the game once we go digital. What it also does is we've got a proprietary software component, and this is ready to go now, but ultimately allows us to capture the pre, the intra, and the post-op outcomes and data. So we'll be able to fold that all in together. The platform itself will connect with the patients ask them 3 very simple questions. Does your knee feel normal? Rating 0 to 100, 100 being normal, which is the SANE score, which is really commonly used score. Have you returned to your prior level of sport? Around about over 40% of patients don't return to their prior level of sport. And the third question that they get asked is, have you had an injury to the same or the other knee? And there's around about an 8 to 10% revision rate at around about 5 years thereabouts on average. And there's also about a similar sort of rate of injury to the other leg. So the other ACL, so you're almost talking about 20% injury rate there once you've had an ACL to your knee. So
let me ask you a question. You bring up something that I think is interesting, especially with the enabling technology, the data side of this, and the algorithm. Is that going to be able to influence in PT postoperatively how the people that are driving the PT are handling the patient? Can it do that?
I think the software will definitely give an ability to do that, Chris. And the fact that we're marrying it back now to what is happening in the operation, there's obviously a level of that data that gets captured. They write down that it was a patella tendon, it was a 10 mil graft. They capture that sort of stuff, but there's not the added layer of it. PT is a critical component. Mike, as you said, that's where you started. It's a critical component. If you don't do the rehab, if you don't have a good physical therapist, then you're not going to get the outcomes. And the reality is, does the surgeon get the feedback that can help the surgeon to guide a patient's recovery? Probably not. Whereas if you've got something simply that's telling you what you really care about, which is where are you at? Have you had another injury? Does your knee feel normal? And should it feel normal at 3 months? No. But should it feel normal at 9 months? Should it feel normal at 12? I think as we get better, you've got a much better chance of that. And if you can keep the stakeholders who are helping the patient engage with each other, I think that also helps. And the platform gives them that ability as well. We can have the physiotherapists engaged as well so that they're seeing what's happening at the surgeon's request. So I think it definitely can.
That's great.
Yeah. So you grew up a commercial guy.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a great tuck in for one of the big sports companies for sure.
No doubt.
But I think they're also conservative. So they're going to want to see you not only have clinical proof, but also some revenue traction. So how are you thinking about scaling your revenue, your distribution? How do you get from 0 to 10 million so that one of the big 3 or 4 sports companies writes you a nice big check?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think ultimately we've obviously got some really good surgeons, some amazing surgeons actually, who are advising us, both US, and we've got a number of global KOLs invested in the company based here in Sydney. So we're getting these amazing insights. They've obviously got a lot of friends. We're seeing that they're seeing the value in this and in the platform. So how we're going to scale is we're going to look to really try and go deep within the areas that we're in.
Yeah.
Repeat usage from both our advisors, but also the people who are in their institutions. As I mentioned, we've got guys who are working in some of the busiest institutions in the US. So we really want to get that repeat usage and that expanded usage within those facilities. We know those facilities train a lot of surgeons every year. They also grand rounds, talking at AOSSM, all of the big meetings. So we know that this is going to be our ability to then expand out and be able to drive deep and be able to build that out. I'm a commercial guy, so it'll be about staying disciplined and not getting too loose. But when we get someone who says, hey, I want to use it, just spreading it to wildfire. I think the other thing as well, we want to be working with good people who believe in the technology. Like, I know that someone who might be carrying Smith & Nephew is the bigger fish in the bag. But if we're working with someone who's selling Smith & Nephew, we want them to be passionate that they can see that this could be a difference maker. It could be something that protects their ACL user because it gives them a differentiation, or it could be something that gets them an ACL user. Similarly, the way we've designed the tool, a procedure like MPFL, we've done almost 15 cases, I think 15 cases now here in Australia where the surgeons have used the device to assess their tunnel position on the femur before drilling, which is a massive step. Incorrect tunnel positioning is the number one reported issue across the board, and the one that the surgeons are really worried about, both ACL and outside of that. The surgeons who've been doing it have been doing it without X-ray. So that removes cost, it removes time. And you know from your trauma background, Mike, that as soon as the II is in the room, it slows the day down. It also increases fluoroscopy. Like there's a whole heap of reasons why X-ray is not a great thing. But ultimately, it gives them a tool that can help them find their position, and then a tool that can help them to reduce the joint, stabilize the joint, tension it. And I've got to be careful when I say tension, because whenever I talk about tension about the MPFL, the surgeons, they go, no, we don't want any tension. There's tension that's there. It just might not be a lot. But ultimately, it gives them an ability to really dial it in, but get this expanded usage for it. So as I said, I think that's part of how we get to a position of either being able to accelerate the sales or getting picked up earlier, is because we're not just about the ACL and tensioning. That's a key part of it, but we're also about positioning. We're also about other parts of the body, elbow, shoulder, foot and ankle. We've got a platform technology essentially.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll be doing demos at AOSSM.
Yeah.
Of course, I know that's next week, so I'm not sure if this is going to be published live and before then, but nonetheless, we'll be doing it. Invite
Absolutely.
any of the to check it out. I know you're doing a fundraise. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, because that's one of the things that I've been learning about since becoming a CEO of a startup. It's that fundraising never ends. But yeah, no, we've raised, when I came in, we've raised about 3 million under a convertible note, which we closed in January. That got us to where we are today. We're currently doing an equity round at the moment, so we're targeting a raise of 5 million US. We've got 650 under signed term sheets at the moment, which is exciting because that initiates the round. But we've got a further 1.6 committed, which is fantastic, and we're just working to find the lead that the 1.6 will come in on the back of. So we've got some really good traction with it. As I said, we're about to start doing US cases. We actually got notification as well that our first piece of IP has been granted, which is fantastic.
Awesome.
So we've got about another 11 claims that we're about to transition from PCT and onto the fast track. With a lot of the new IP that we've been developing, we actually also filed a provisional for a really neat fixation device that came out of some conversations that we've been having as well. So we've got a really nice IP wallet there that's growing. But yeah, we're definitely looking for more investors to come in for this round. We've got a really clear path. Within the next 6 months, we'll have 2 FDA 510K cleared products based on the money that we've raised so far. In this round, we'll have a couple of versions of our disposable tensioner in a disposable format as well. So we're going to be able to prove a couple of these things about revenue generation, procedural kits, that we can get clearances, that we can get sales going as well. So we're confident that we can really move this thing along over the next 6 to 12 months.
Excellent.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, good luck at AOSSM. I'm sure there's going to be a long line at your booth to see it all in action. Sean, how can, if people are interested in learning more, investing, how do people find Sean Cogan and learn more about Tessa?
Yep. Well, fortunately, I updated my image on LinkedIn recently. So when they actually look, they'll find the guy without hair rather than the guy who had hair. So yeah, connect with me directly through LinkedIn. Otherwise, Tessa's got a webpage, tessamedcorp.com, provides a bit of information about the company, a bit of information about where we're up to. We have stayed a little bit in stealth. So when you look at the website, it's not going to be the latest and greatest. We are doing some upgrades to that at the moment, but that probably the best way is to be able to connect. My contact details are on the website as well as through LinkedIn, but love to talk to anyone. That's probably been one of the things throughout, has been you learn something from everyone that you talk to. And it doesn't matter what I necessarily maybe want to get out of a reach out from someone. Like, it's all the pearls that come out of the conversation that happens. So love to hear from interested parties. Love to share the message.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations on the progress you've made. And
thank you.
Yeah. So congratulations, Sean. And yeah, thanks again for listening to MedTech Jam Session and for our rockin' theme song, soon to be out on Spotify. All right, check out the MedTech Jam Session wherever you get your podcasts and learn more about Tessa, Sean Cogan, and all of the great founders that we talked to. See you on the other side, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.